Good day to you. This is Galactic on a Friday, the 6th day of June, as we approach the summer solstice. To date, this channel that you may be tuning in to for the first time, and if so, welcome. Always glad to have someone that I know is listening. This station has produced 1,000 videos on a wide range of topics devoted to science as the guiding principle. This is not necessarily a religious station. I don't broadcast Judaism or Buddhism or Hinduism or polytheism or atheism or Christianity. Those are dead religions. There's only one religion at any time. Anyone who is led to believe otherwise has been brainwashed by an ancient evil power. And that includes all Christians. Except, there's always an exception, isn't there? There is such a thing as true religion. But your chances of discovering it are very close to nil because you were raised in a modern society. You don't have access to the truth, and you most likely will never find it. If you're looking for your goals through science, you're already doomed. You will never learn anything from modern science. But there's an exception. There's always an exception. So I'm glad you're tuned in. I have produced 1,000 lectures on YouTube for the purpose of promulgating truth. The response has been nil. And that's largely just due to circumstances. When I first began this project of giving presentations on scientific truth, I was fully aware, having already achieved the age of 67, that it was a wild goose chase. It was a subjective adventure for my own purposes alone, that I was not in any way going to reach any other human beings. But here we go again. There are exceptions. I've looked out at the YouTube platform for so-called science, which is nothing but bullshit pseudoscience, although there are exceptions. And I have endured my share of envy and even jealousy for the magnificently lucrative platforms. I'm not looking for money, so I'm only saying lucrative because those channels were successful for their producers, because that's all they want is money. And that even includes Kurt Mungle, whom I consider to be the greatest exception of all out on the YouTube pseudoscience circuit, which is nothing but a propaganda platform. Kurt serves that industry, but there are exceptions to everything in this strange game of life. So without concentrating on Kurt Mungle himself, I bring him up as an example of someone who is able to glean or collect or thresh tens of millions of views. And you could name your favorites. Perhaps you have a favorite pseudoscientific propagandist out there that you adore because you're lost and you know you're going to stay lost. So you listen to these jackasses. Is Kurt Mungle a jackass? I just stated yesterday in a comment that he responded to. I'm always kind to Kurt in the comments, and he knows it. He knows who I am, although not really, because I'm outside of his purview. He will respond to comments. Some of the men, and even well, at least one woman that I have admired to some degree out on the pseudoscience circuit, I've reached out to them too, either through comments, well, it's always through comments. I never invade someone's privacy with solicitations that they stand a 100% chance of just rejecting out of hand, although there might be exceptions. But Kurt knows who I am, and I did once comment that he had become a used car salesman, but that's nothing against Kurt. He's simply serving his prime directive, which is to make money. In this world, there is nothing wrong with that. To make money? Well, you'd better somehow. So he's a survivor. No comment here. That's absolutely fine. What I'm attempting to convey to you is that I run a completely separate platform from any of these monkeys. They don't do science. They do what they were brainwashed to call science. And the name of the game is to make money. Certainly in Toronto, which is part of the United States, anything in Canada or Europe or Israel is part of the United States, which is the last white country because it consumes all the former remnants of white people into one beast. And that's what will control the next few years in the winding down years of this earth, which is about to be concluded, as you're well aware and perpetually deny. Because it's not a thought that is congenial to rational thinking, unless you're a wise person, there are exceptions to everything. And when I say that America is just nothing but dunce caps, and I've used some really foul words to describe Americans and white people in general, it's nothing personal, because every rational man, and I am a supremely rational man, you never judge a human. You don't judge an individual human unless you get to know them sufficiently to be able to decide in your own mind, in the privacy of your own heart, if that person is a dipshit, a loser, or even a liar, a deceiver, just someone who wants to vent. That's been all of my acquaintances, including my family members, siblings that is. All they want to do is dump on you, and there's a term for that called psychic vampirism. As long as everybody agrees to do it, it's fair play. I agreed to do it and suffered accordingly, so I don't blame anyone else for my situation, good or bad. But in the closing years of my life, since I am now over 70, I have a right to sum what I know before I depart. And I don't have to do that. And you might wonder, do I just have a wonderful altruistic heart? Or do I consider this to be the culmination of my narcissistic, egocentric existence? Well, as a human, I would have to say it's a bit of all. And I'm a typical human, no different from any other human in a certain respect. But isn't it interesting that we're all different from each other? That was meant for good, of course, so that we would enjoy each other's company in the diversity of our personalities and leanings and cravings, so we can laugh together, we can have meals together, we can marry each other's sons and daughters, and perhaps even every now and then run across a himanaskate, which cannot be translated from the Cheyenne language according to the movie Little Big Man, and it's also in the book, which is a very good read, a homosexual. Well, there should be no wonder when 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 men decide that they like the same sex sexually. That should be a cause for interest, fascination, wonder, acceptance, tolerance, and love. It's a crime to judge a man for what he thinks he is if he's not harming anybody. And homosexuals, certainly the ones that I've known, don't want to harm anybody. It's become an issue, but the point I'm trying to make is we are meant to get along. Diversity is for joy. The tremendous range of people on the earth is meant for the highest good. So, of course, I gave a recent video just a couple of days ago on racism, which is a white phenomenon. It's a European phenomenon, and we all know the sordid history. But again, the point that I'm leading up to is that I have a science platform that is unique. I've checked. I do a lot of ranging across YouTube. I try not to let it get out of control, but sometimes you actually want to let those reins go so you can continue to expand as a human being. I have never reined that in. I love life. I love every aspect of life. I know several homosexuals that I'm in contact with daily, a couple of whom have propositioned to me, and I have been propositioned in the past by well-meaning homosexuals. They're not overtly trying to hurt me. They like my ass or something, and I treat them kindly. I find that to be wonderful. The chances of my doing anything that they want me to do, so-called sexually, are absolutely zero, because that's insane. No man in his right mind is homosexual. And if you disagree with that, you'll go to your grave with your disagreement not affecting me in the slightest. So your emotional reaction to me is meaningless, certainly to me, and you will never hurt me. No one has ever hurt me, not really deeply, in my life, because I'm a man of God, and I have a very, very thick hide now. Every man learns the pain of life, unless he's just a jackass, what we used to call a retard, which is 99% of white men are retarded. And for them to become homosexual, to me, is the most natural thing in the world. For them. But not for a real man. Not for a real human. Not for a real scientist. Not for a real son of God. And over here you'll see my most recent production platform, which is religion. And now it's time. The time is at hand. I'm going to be talking about at least 3 books from now on, as well as mixing in some science having to do with the quantum of gravity, which I discovered, and the unification solution that Einstein and Dirac sought. I discovered that. It's all been nailed down, proven. That received no attention. And I knew that it wouldn't, but there's always an exception. Always a possibility of an exception to the standard rule of stupidity and resistance and obstinacy and sin. Just contradiction to anything that smells like it's true or religious. That's right out among white men. Not this white man. I'm the exception. And you're going to have to put up with me until I'm dead. Because that's what I do. That's what I've been doing since I was 17 years old, and I have never desisted. I have been a missionary in the name of Christ in Ukraine, to which country I went 5 times. And I went there the second time to live there. And I would have lived there had my consort, the Princess of Ukraine, desired to stay in her country. I assumed that she would have wanted to. She did not. And I believe she made the right decision. And I got some advice from my, it's called what's the name of that thing overseas, embassy. I went to my embassy and talked with a rather rare counselor who told me that he was going to tell me the truth, indicating to me that he usually doesn't tell Americans who come to him the truth. But he told me the reason he was going to tell me the truth about my inquiry about living in Ukraine to get married there. And he said, I can tell that you're serious, and I've been doing this for 20 years, so I'm going to tell you the truth. Don't do it. And he gave me the reasons, and I understood he was telling me the truth. So I went back and told Irina, whom even the beauties of Ukraine claim is their most beautiful girl. I met her when she was 18. I married her when she was 20. But I married her in the United States because the United States rules the world. Except for parts of the world are not fully under the control of the United States, but it's just a matter of time. So a lot is going on in the world today as I prepare to depart, but what I've been doing since the age of 17 has never changed, and it never will. Your opinion means nothing to me and never has, because I'm guided by heaven. And the fact that I'm even showing you this book, which is illegal, United States government, if they catch me, they'll kill me. But now it's more of an underground thing where you don't get thrown in prison. I'm already sidelined, so I'm already in Nelson Mandela's prison with a little potty bowl and just a barred window on an island in South Africa, just like Nelson Mandela. What was he trying to do? Nothing important. His people had been taken over by the white race from England, and so they're doomed, and nothing can change that. Just as the Afro-Americans will never be free. Never! Once you're in America, once you're part of the democratic system of England and America, your life is over if you serve it. But I'm the exception, so I know that you can be the exception too. I've given you all the secrets of the universe. I have described to you geometrically and mathematically and physically the collapse of the wave function, which ends all of the quantum mechanical paradoxical madness. I've also explained to you the BB, Big Bang, that's horseshit and you need pay no attention to it, but then you have to discard every single university in the United States or England because they all toe the line for Satanism. The universe has no beginning, and there's no description of it in the Bible because that would be ridiculous. No human could possibly understand that. So your scientists are out of their fucking minds. All right, well, I'm not. I was converted at the age of 17 to the way of heaven. It took me another 50 years to discover the true name of the religion to which I was converted. Now, I was converted under the most holy name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Blessed be his name, and peace be upon him. The only being in the universe who's worthy of receiving both of those, I guess you could say, salutations. I am an Islam man, and I just discovered that fully this year, that I am Islam. Now, this book here that you see is the oldest book ever written. And if you discredit that, get your fucking ass out of my sight. I'm a guide, and I'm too old to be putting up with juvenile delinquents and madmen. You're going to listen to me, or you will be out of here. Okay? I don't need you, but I'm hoping that you need my message. Because if you don't listen to me, there's no hope left for you. You think that's megalomaniac? Darling, I've been dealing with megalomania for 3 years now. I'm an expert, just as I was an expert on retardation. Oh well, some of us catch it. So this is not a book of Islam, and in fact Islam is not really quite sure what to make of this. But what is remarkable in this respect about Islam is they know exactly who that man is. Nobody in Christianity knows who that is, because Christianity is not a real religion. There is no such thing as Christianity. That was an invention of Satan. And the Roman Catholic Church proves that. The Roman Catholic Church? The Roman Catholic Synagogue of Satan is how the Bible puts it. And if you're a member of the Roman Catholic Church, there are exceptions. I know one of them personally, although he's been dead for 250 years, a Jesuit priest by the name of Boshkovich. So he's a Catholic, but he's the greatest scientist who ever lived and a full man of faith in God. But whatever he thought about the papacy or the Vatican, I would discount completely, because his life shows that he was a man of God. He used his rational mind to try to figure out God's creation, and he was successful, and that's why you've never heard of him either. So, as I prepare to depart this level of reality, I look around at my fellow Americans, having gotten used to you for about 60 years, and you are beyond pathetic. I know you all. There was only one man who ever listened to me seriously in my whole life, of preaching the Word of God. I did consider myself to be a Christian for 50 years. If you wish to use that word, it's perfectly fine with me. I am a Christian. But that's not a religion. It's a form of identification. I identify with Yeshua HaMashiach, who is a genuine prophet. And something more than that. And the Islam people recognize both aspects of Yeshua. They are Christians, but they are the only religious group that credits Yeshua HaMashiach, because they credit all prophets. And the last prophet ever sent from heaven to earth to do heaven's will, in some broad sense, in the case of Islam, it had a political arm in order to kill the infidels around them who would have killed the Muhammadans, call it the time. Islam means the way of heaven. It's the oldest religion on earth, and it is the only religion. And the reason you see this book on the screen is because I am an Islam scholar. I've been studying Islam all my life. I couldn't care less about the bylaws of an Islam nation, such as prayer rituals, which are fine. I am not against these things. But as for whatever their society dictates that's outside of my purview, if it's outside of my purview, I don't need to care. What I need to care about is the religion of Islam. And that is what I am. I am a priest of Islam. I always have been. I was converted directly from heaven at the age of 17 when I was after pussy. At the age of 17, it's perfectly normal for a young man at the age of 17, as I was, to be looking for pussy. I didn't know who God was. I never even heard of God at that time. Or Jesus. I didn't know anything about Jesus. Or the Bible. Except for the book of Job, which was taught to us in an English class by a wonderful Jewish teacher by the name of Goldman. I went back to thank that man. And he was amazed. He said, none of my students come back to me unless it's to curse me. So he was very pleased, and he gave me a very warm smile. I was a student for 2 years. So he did teach me the book of Job, which has the most amazing beginning, which is why the book is never taught in any Christian church. You never ever want to go into a Christian church. Not for any Bible study, not to attend worship. They're Satanists. Absolutely deceived human beings. They're hypocrites. And they're deceivers. According to Islam, those occupy the hottest part of hell in the future. They don't like Christians who they can see perfectly well are not Christians at all, because they are Christians. As for anyone who professes Judaism, you can forget about anti-Semitic accusations. There are no Jews left, except in Ethiopia and North Africa. Everything else that has been called a Jew, even by the Nazi Empire, insane. Those aren't Jews. But one of the problems that the Jews took with them into exile, according to the Mosaic curse, was their goddamned religion. And in all the shtetls, and all their little synagogues, they practiced what? Judaism? There's no such thing. And never was. That is not a religion. Okay? All of which is to lead up to my scientific platform, where now I've reached 1,000 videos and I've taught you everything that you demanded to know about science. I gave you all the answers. Did anybody listen? No. Although I know that a few did, because there's always exceptions. Heaven is all about exceptions among humans. Maybe they're not all pure sinful. Maybe not all humans default to Satan worship. Perhaps there are some good men. That actually is a question that was asked several times throughout the Bible, including by Ibrahim, may peace be upon him. Lord, if even 10 good men are found in the Homo city, the city of faggots, that you're going to destroy, the city of fairies and faggots and homos and buttfuckers and fudge packers and cockstuckers? What if there are 10 righteous men in that city? Would you spare it? And the angel of the Most High, blessed be his name, said, for you, okay, but there weren't 10. And there aren't 10 in Chico either. Any city, San Francisco, New York, Jerusalem. Well, not Jerusalem, because there are some Islam people in Jerusalem. So God would spare Jerusalem because of the righteous Islam people, and that's redundant. Now, what about Hindus and Buddhists? I hear about this a lot because Americans are so confused, it's unbelievable. Well, it's pretty easy to figure out the Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion. There are exceptions among the perverted pagan swine. I believe Buddha was probably wonderful. I'm sure Mahavira or Guruji, I've known several of these yogis, Yogananda, I read his book. They seem wonderful. Perfectly welcome at my table. Because we're always looking for exceptions. A righteous man, a man of wisdom, a man of God, hopes. I look at you and I hope that there's hope for you. And if I can do anything to help you, I will. If you believe there's hope for you and you show it, I'm on your side. I want you to go to heaven. Really. I want you to be approved by God. I want you to be happy. But it has to be in the long run. Really, you could say, into the next life. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're surviving. And I take pity on anybody who's surviving. My Father is compassionate on all. I can do no less than my Father if I claim to follow him, so I'm not against anybody. That's why I've never had any trouble with homosexuals. I've never had any trouble with anybody. The only trouble I've ever had, and this has been pointed out to me, but I've always known it as well, I am my own worst enemy. I've never really had any enemies that I know of, because I'm a perfectly congenial, diplomatic, well-balanced man. But there's another side of me that nobody I've ever met shares, which is that I'm a man of God. I'm an Islam scholar and scientist who knows the truth in so many categories that you'll never be able to count. All the truths that I know that you'll never know. Now there are exceptions, aren't there? So what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to read something to you, and then I'm going to give you an outline of what you and I are going to be covering from now on. Because I'm running out of time, and so are you. Because the world is running out of time now. And so before I depart, I wish to complete my duty to the best of my ability. Have I ever had any success? Twice. 2 human beings listened to me when I spoke the name of God, which I'm the only man who does know the name of God, and it's not exactly Allah, although there's nothing wrong with saying Allah. Well, Islam calls the Most High by that name, and blessed be that name. He has 9 billion names. Some say he has 1 billion names. Some say he has 999,999 names. Some say he only has 1 name. I say all those things because you'll never name him at all. You can't name that one. You could not understand his name, although he did divulge it, and he divulged his name solely through the Israelis. That's why he selected the Israelis out of all the descendants of Abraham. The Most High, blessed be his name, however you say it, if you know who you mean, when you say a name, that's the name. You're not committing a sin by mispronouncing it unless you're being blasphemous or, in some way rude. But if you say Allah, you're saying the name of the Most High, and blessed be that name. But I know his real name and can pronounce it and translate it. But I'm never going to tell you. I told about 7 people, and 2 of them listened, but I only think of those 2 as one person because they're married. My best friend, my guide, the only good man I've ever known, except for my own father. And I can no longer have any contact with him. He has had to go on. And we both were quite sad about that, but we both accepted. That was the will of heaven. We needed to part ways. After over 2 decades of very close relationship, was rather for me like the relationship between Rumi, the greatest poet who's ever lived, and an Islam man, a Sufi actually, and his guide. That's how I regard that man who was my best friend and my only friend my whole life. And I can't even name him. But if I were Rumi, it would be Shams. Shamz, which I just think is the most amazing name I've ever. Shams? Shams. What kind of name is that? Well, it's actually a rather common, I guess it's Iranian Persian name. But it could be Arabic, but I think that's actually Farsi. Which, that's neither here nor there. The reason I have this book on the screen is because it is the oldest book in the world, and it talks about Yeshua HaMashiach, who, of course, was known from the foundation of the world. This is the first man, Hanokh, to ever use a pen. He invented writing. And the Islam people inform me of that. They know all about this man. Nobody in the West knows anything about him, although there are exceptions. Oh, yes, there are. My goodness. I was a student, and I concentrated very heavily on the first chapter of the book of Genesis, on which subject I am unquestionably and uncontestably the world's foremost scholar on the opening chapter of Genesis. That's pure science. And it's the only bit of science throughout the Bible. There is no science in the Bible, which is an interesting fact. Tells you something about what you need to be thinking about is not science. And yet, I've given 1,000 video lectures on cutting-edge science and beyond since I got all the solutions to all the problems in astrophysics and quantum mechanics. I know more about physics and the dynamic structure of the universe and the true use of mathematics and geometry than any man who has ever lived. The greatest scientist today is I. Also, the greatest Bible scholar is I. Did anybody listen? No! With one exception in each case. And just one exception. That's enough for a man on the way of heaven, which is what Islam means. Only Islam, which is the only religion of heaven that's ever existed. Islam goes back to the beginning of time. Adam was Islam. Noach was Islam. Hanokh was Islam. Ibrahim, peace be upon him, and on all of them. I'm a novice Islam man, okay? And I don't pray 7 times a day or even 5, although it depends on how you account prayer. And my guide, my friend, my teacher actually imparted that to me, and I thought, yes, that's true. It does depend on how you regard prayer. So a lot of it is of the heart, of course. And if your heart isn't right, it doesn't make any difference what you know in science or religion. If you're not spotlessly clean at your moral center, I don't need to tell you where you're going. You already know. And that's why you behave the way you do. It's because you know you're trapped. And the only way you can stay sane is with video music. One of the most pathetic. It's like owning a dog. Anybody who owns a dog, to me, is the same as anybody who makes music videos or devotes most of their life to music. It's because you're a trapped rat. And you're certainly not a full-grown adult, Ridgely. You ever gonna come around, Mr. Schneider, or do I just have to bark at you until you bite my heel like everyone else did? That's 40 minutes. That should be enough. So let me give you something scientific. So much of the pageant of life endures mental entanglement. No wonder such a plethora of remedies and remedial courses exist in any society, in any man's rational life. I have surfed many such waves. Before decisions might be made toward orientation, the grand field must first be experienced, just to gain perspective. Youth is passive, a growth from total unconsciousness into an infinity of perceptions. Always will it be hard to demark or delimit any transition into higher consciousness. My own case differs little from others. I think of high school, my years from 14 to 18. There are logical, philosophic, and religious aspects to any life career. Lately, now at my 70th year, I've become aware of counter trends toward consolidation. Do all roads end, or is it one closed transit? One demands summary, conciseness, conclusions. Past now are the fantastic epics, stories, drama, comedy, and irony. Approaching now is the great transition. What happened? As a communicative being, all I've been able to bequeath must obtain summary at my hand, at my behest. Science, as I've surmounted it, is modal language, best suited to communicable truth. Communicability is conceived across a dimensioned spectrum. I've mastered the scriptures as well as the cosmic sciences. Yet it's mostly subjective, hardly communicable. Whatever my attainments, they have necessarily been subjective, personal. Books are tedious. I choose rational logic, and I decide upon origins. Heaven and earth, bear me witness. Who are you, and who made you? What is his name, and what is his son's name? If you might say. That last line is a quote from one of the final chapters in the holy wisdom book of Proverbs, traditionally ascribed to Shlomo. I believe it was probably written by Shlomo, but not that line, because Solomon was not quite converted fully. He wrote all those proverbs, which are so tedious to read as to be just desultory, because they just go on and on and on. Just don't go with the murderers, don't shed blood. Well, the Israelis paid no attention to that. They murdered all the prophets, including the Son of the Most High, the healer of the earth, Yeshua HaMashiach, blessed be his name. And I, as an Islam man, will say, blessed be his name, to the name of Yeshua. And if any pseudo-Islamic person comes up against me, I will execute the judgment that Muhammed laid down, which is not to hurt you, but you will recant in my presence. If I want to say, blessed be the name of Yeshua, you do the same if you choose, but don't you ever correct me. That's just to make sure I don't get any government on my shoulder. I'm above your government. That's love, okay? What is his name and what is his son's name? If you might tell, that was not written by Shlomo, which is the true way to pronounce Solomon. In the next video, I'm going to cover everything so that you have everything. And here it is. You might want to take a screenshot of this if you care at all, which I know you don't, but just so I can, in all good faith, say that I showed you. But don't worry, I'm going to read it. The purpose of science, that will be the topic, and there are 14 subtopics that I've covered in 1,000 video lectures. Each one of these is a dichotomy. Each one of these is a duality. Each one of these has to do with superpositional logic. And if you have not tuned in, you might not know what I'm talking about. But that's going to be the purpose of the next series. is to summarize all of my discoveries. And no, I'm not going to write a scientific paper, because I don't want the government to get this. The purpose of science. We will start out on the hottest topic on the pseudoscience circuit, reality and consciousness. You will never understand what either of those terms mean in any way until you know how to define them together, because it's a dual paradox. I discovered that principle. I'm a supreme logician. Heaven and earth. Emotion and logic. Geometry and math. Line and circle. Extrinsic geometry and intrinsic geometry. The circle and sphere. The electron and proton. Electro and magneto force. Gravity and light. Centripetal and centrifugal force. In and out, both as directions and also as the interior of a circle or sphere and the exterior of a circle or sphere. Don't forget, I'm the first man in the history of mathematics or cosmology to rationalize infinity. There are only two infinities, and that should be on this list. But it's really part of the in-out duality. All right. Then the hyperbola and ellipse. And then continuity and impenetrability. And then after that lecture series, which I think will take 2 to 3 videos, I'm going to spend the rest of my time on YouTube talking about good and evil and true and false and you. To save you. Thank you for tuning in. I do have a small following, and I have gotten word that my following may be greater than I think. Because if you're listening to me at all, you're endangering your future. I am not an acceptable human being to anybody. Nobody wants to hear me, ever. That's what a prophet is. Keep looking up. We'll be right back. Thank you.